Miami, 1985. The city glows like a neon fever dream against the black velvet of the Atlantic night. Art Deco hotels cast pink and turquoise shadows across Ocean Drive, while cigarette boats loaded with Colombian cocaine slice through the bay waters like silver knives. This is a city at war with itself, pastel facades hiding blood-soaked streets, where fortunes are made in powder and lost in bullets. Captain Otis Mello stands on the 20th floor balcony of the Metro-Dade Police Headquarters, his dark eyes surveying his kingdom of chaos. At 42, he's become a legend, the first black captain to command Miami's elite vice squad during the bloodiest drug war the nation has ever seen. His tailored cream linen suit catches the breeze, the shoulders sharp enough to cut glass, the cut precise as a surgeon's blade. Gold aviator sunglasses hang from his breast pocket, next to the shield that represents everything he's fought to achieve. His presence commands respect without demanding it, the kind of quiet authority that makes hardened criminals confess and young officers straighten their spines. 3 years ago, Otis Mello was a nobody from Liberty City, the son of a Haitian merchant marine who taught him that honor matters more than origin. He worked narcotics in the streets, taking down dealers in shotgun houses and crack dens, building cases brick by brick with methodical precision. Then came the Cartagena incident, a night when Mello went undercover deep into a Colombian cartel operation, wearing a wire into a warehouse meeting where $10 million in cash changed hands. When the deal went south and guns came out, Mello didn't flinch. He took 3 bullets protecting his team and still managed to bring down Xavier Montoya, the most feared distributor on the eastern seaboard. The newspapers called him a hero. The department called him captain. But success breeds shadows, and in those shadows lurks Detective Ian Gomez. Ian Gomez paces the bullpen 4 floors below, his muscular frame coiled tight with resentment. At 38, he's pure Miami stock, third-generation Cuban-American, raised in Little Havana, where his father ran numbers for the mob before Castro, where his uncles taught him that loyalty means blood, and blood means everything. Gomez has 15 years on the force, 12 in vice, working the streets when Mello was still walking a beat. His dark hair is slicked back with enough gel to survive a hurricane, his mustache trimmed to perfection above lips that smile easily but mean nothing. He wears a black leather jacket over a burgundy t-shirt, tight jeans, and Italian loafers without socks, the uniform of a man who lives between two worlds. Gomez believed the captain's position belonged to him. He'd earned it in blood and bullets, in undercover operations where he'd become the criminals he hunted, in interrogation rooms where suspects learned that his charm was more dangerous than his fists. But when Chief Brabant made his decision, he chose the outsider, the war hero, the man whose skin color made for better press conferences and federal funding. The choice ate at Gomez like acid, transforming admiration into something darker, something patient and poisonous. Captain's got that charity thing tonight. Gomez mentions casually to Detective Rodrigo Morales, who's filling out paperwork at the adjacent desk. Big gala at the Fontainebleau. All the politicians and money people kissing his ass. Rodrigo, a thick-necked officer with tired eyes, doesn't look up. Man deserves it. Took down the Montoya network, cleaned up Overtown, got us federal grants that doubled our equipment budget. You still bitter about the promotion, Ian? Gomez's smile doesn't waver, but his eyes go flat as a shark's. Bitter? Nah. Brother, I'm happy for him. Real happy. He lights a cigarette, the flame from his gold Zippo casting orange shadows across his face. Just wondering what else the Golden Boy's gonna take. The answer walks through the precinct doors at that exact moment, though Gomez doesn't know it yet. Her name is Desi Brabant, and she moves through the institutional gray corridors like color bleeding into black and white film. 28 years old, she's the daughter of Chief Thomas Brabant, the man who runs Metro-Dade's entire police operation. Her blonde hair falls in waves past her shoulders, styled in that effortless way that costs $200 at Coconut Grove salons. She wears a coral silk blouse tucked into high-waisted white linen pants, a gold belt at her waist, oversized sunglasses pushed up on her head. But it's not her beauty that stops conversations, it's the intelligence in her green eyes, the law degree from Georgetown, the 3 years she spent as an assistant district attorney before deciding she wanted to work cases, not just prosecute them. She's here to see Otis Mello, and everyone knows why. The romance began 6 months ago at a crime scene that looked like a Scarface fever dream. The Mutiny Hotel penthouse suite was painted in blood and cocaine. Three bodies arranged around a glass coffee table that reflected the neon from Biscayne Boulevard 20 floors below. Desi Brabant had arrived as the prosecutor's liaison, her heels clicking across marble floors slick with evidence of Miami's endless appetite for self-destruction. Otis Mello stood in the center of the carnage, dictating notes to a uniformed officer while crime scene photographers captured every angle of violence. His voice was steady, professional, but Desi caught something else underneath a weariness that spoke to the cost of seeing humanity at its worst, night after night, year after year. When their eyes met across that blood-soaked room, something electric passed between them, something that had nothing to do with the dead men at their feet and everything to do with two souls recognizing their match. "Miss Brabant," he had said, removing his sunglasses with deliberate slowness. "I understand you'll be handling the prosecution." "Captain Mello," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "I've read about your work. Impressive record. Just doing my job, ma'am." But the way he said, "ma'am," wasn't dismissive or patronizing. It was respectful, almost protective. The kind of old-fashioned courtesy her father's generation of cops had long since abandoned. And when he offered her his jacket because the air conditioning was making her shiver, she accepted it not because she was cold, but because she wanted to wear something that smelled like his cologne, something woody and clean that cut through the stench of death. Their first date was supposed to be coffee. It turned into dinner at Joe's Stone Crab, then drinks at the Cardozo bar, then a walk along the moonlit beach, where she told him about growing up as a police chief's daughter, about the weight of always being watched, always being judged, always having to prove she belonged in rooms full of men who saw her as decoration or distraction. He told her about Liberty City, about his father's hands scarred from years of loading cargo ships, about the night he decided to become a cop after watching drug dealers destroy his neighborhood one hit at a time. They made love for the first time in her Coral Gables apartment, rain hammering against the windows while Miami Vice played silently on her television. He traced the line of her spine with fingers that had pulled triggers and cuffed killers, but touched her like she was made of spun glass. She mapped the scars on his chest and shoulders, souvenirs from the Cartagena incident and a dozen other battles with her lips, claiming each mark as part of the man she was falling for. The secret lasted 3 months. In a city where everyone talks and gossip travels faster than cocaine, keeping their relationship private required the same skills that made Mello an effective undercover operative. They met in hotel rooms registered under false names, shared dinners in restaurants far from downtown, took weekend trips to Key West, where they could walk hand in hand without reporters or rival cops photographing them for future ammunition. But secrets have a way of surfacing in Miami, especially when someone with Detective Ian Gomez's connection starts digging. Gomez discovered the truth through a parking ticket. Desi Brabant's white BMW was ticketed outside Mello's Coconut Grove townhouse at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. The meter maid, Rosa Hernandez, happened to be Gomez's cousin's girlfriend, and family gossip travels in circles in Little Havana. By that evening, Gomez knew everything he needed to know, and his mind began working like the calculating machine it had always been. The plan crystallized around Detective Casey Morrison. Casey Morrison is 26 years old, fresh from the academy with the kind of all-American looks that belong on recruitment posters. Sandy hair, blue eyes, a smile that suggests he still believes in the nobility of police work despite 3 years of Miami streets trying to corrupt him. He graduated second in his class, earned a commendation for bravery during a bank robbery shootout, and possesses the kind of natural charisma that makes hardened criminals want to confess their sins. More importantly, he worships Captain Mello with the devotion of a younger brother who finally found a role model worth following. Mello took Casey under his wing because he saw something of himself in the young detective: the hunger to make a difference, the refusal to compromise with corruption, the belief that good police work could actually save lives. Casey volunteers for the most dangerous undercover assignments, studies surveillance footage until his eyes burn, practices his marksmanship until his hands stop shaking. He wants to be worthy of his mentor's trust, which makes him perfect for Gomez's purposes. Kid's got potential, Gomez tells Mello as they watch Casey through the one-way glass of interview room 3, where the young detective is questioning a meth dealer with surprising skill. "Reminds me of you when you were coming up." Mello nods, pride evident in his expression. He's got instincts, doesn't rush, doesn't let emotion cloud his judgment. Give him 2 more years and he'll be ready for his own unit. "Mind if I take him on the Biscayne operation tomorrow night?" Gomez asks casually. Could use someone with his interview skills. Sure, Mello agrees, not seeing the trap being laid stone by stone. Experience is the best teacher. Gomez smiles, the expression as warm and false as a Miami winter, and begins mentally rehearsing the lies he'll plant, the evidence he'll manufacture, the careful campaign of destruction that will bring down the man who stole his destiny. In his jacket pocket, his fingers trace the outline of a small recording device, and his heart beats steady as a metronome counting time until revenge. The Fontainebleau Hotel rises from Miami Beach like a monument to excess, its curved facade glowing white against the star-drunk sky. Tonight, the Crystal Ballroom hosts the annual Police Benevolent Association Gala, where Miami's power brokers write checks to ease their consciences about the blood money financing their cocaine-dusted lifestyles. Rolls-Royces and Ferraris line the circular drive, their chrome bumpers reflecting the hotel's neon logo like fractured rainbows. Captain Otis Mello adjusts his black bow tie in the elevator mirror, the tuxedo fitting him like expensive armor. Beside him, Desi Brabant radiates elegance in a midnight blue silk gown that hugs her curves before flowing to the floor in liquid waves. Her blonde hair is swept up in a sophisticated chignon, diamond earrings catching the elevator's golden light. They don't touch too many eyes, too many cameras, but the space between them crackles with electricity. My father wants to announce our engagement tonight, she says quietly, her reflection meeting his in the polished metal doors. In front of everyone. Mello's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. They've discussed marriage in private moments, whispered plans between silk sheets and dawn coffee, but he knows what a public announcement means. It means choosing sides in a war he never wanted to fight between his career and his heart, between his past and his future, between the respect he's earned and the love he's found. Are you ready for that? He asks, his voice carefully neutral. Are you? She counters, and the elevator dings open before he can answer. The ballroom buzzes with the kind of conversation that sounds like swarming insects gossip disguised as small talk, deals disguised as charity. Chief Thomas Brabant holds court near the bar, a mountain of a man whose silver hair and granite features suggest he once broke bones for a living before climbing the political ladder. Miami's mayor laughs too loudly at something a real estate developer whispers in his ear. Federal agents disguised as civilians scan the crowd for the cartel money that finances half the faces in the room. Detective Ian Gomez works the periphery like a shark in a feeding frenzy. His tuxedo impeccable, his smile never reaching his eyes. He approaches Detective Casey Morrison, who stands awkwardly near the champagne fountain, clearly uncomfortable in formal wear. First cop gala? Gomez asks, handing Casey a crystal flute filled with Dom Perignon. Casey nods, tugging at his rental bow tie. Feel like I'm playing dress-up. All these people pretending they don't know where the money comes from. Smart kid, Gomez says approvingly. You see things clearly. That's why Captain Mello likes you. He pauses, letting his next words carry weight. Course, the captain's got other things on his mind lately. Casey follows Gomez's gaze across the ballroom to where Mello and Desi stand in conversation with the mayor. Even from a distance, their connection is obvious the way Mello positions himself slightly in front of her, protective without being possessive, the way her fingers brush his arm when she laughs, the way they seem to exist in a bubble of intimacy despite the crowd. Chief's daughter, Gomez continues conversationally. Beautiful girl, smart too. Law degree from Georgetown, could have worked anywhere, but she chose to stay in Miami. Makes you wonder what she's really after. What do you mean? Casey asks, genuine confusion in his voice. Gomez shrugs, the gesture seemingly innocent. Nothing specific. Just interesting how ambitious women sometimes see opportunity where other people see love. The captain's got a lot to offer: position, influence, connections. Makes a girl's career possibilities endless, you know? Before Casey can respond, a commotion erupts near the entrance. Federal Agent Maria Santos strides into the ballroom wearing a severe black suit and the kind of expression that suggests someone's about to have a very bad evening. She's followed by 6 other agents, their presence cutting through the party atmosphere like ice water through champagne. Chief Brabant intercepts them with the smooth efficiency of a politician, but his face has gone pale beneath his tan. The conversation is brief, intense, and conducted in whispers that somehow carry more weight than shouting. When Santos hands him a manila envelope, his hands shake slightly as he opens it. Across the room, Mello senses the disturbance with the instincts of a predator recognizing danger. He excuses himself from the mayor's group and moves toward his superior. Desi following close behind. The crowd parts unconsciously, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Conversations faltering as everyone strains to understand what's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Brabant's voice cuts through the ballroom like a blade. I'm afraid we need to suspend tonight's festivities. Agent Santos has some urgent business that requires our immediate attention. Santos steps forward, her dark eyes scanning the crowd before settling on Captain Mello. We have new evidence in the Cartagena investigation, she announces, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. Evidence that suggests corruption within the Metro-Dade Vice Squad. The accusation hits the ballroom like a physical force. Conversations stop completely. Champagne glasses pause halfway to lips. The only sound is the whisper of expensive fabric as bodies turn to stare at the man who had been their hero 5 minutes earlier. Mello stands perfectly still, his expression unreadable. But Desi can see the tension in his shoulders, the slight tightening around his eyes that suggests he's calculating threats and possibilities at lightning speed. This isn't random. Someone has planned this moment, orchestrated this public humiliation with surgical precision. Detective Ian Gomez watches from across the room, his face a mask of appropriate shock and concern. But in the shadows behind a marble pillar, his lips curve in the faintest suggestion of a smile. Phase 1 is complete, the foundation has been cracked. Now comes the real work of destroying a good man's life. Piece by carefully manufactured piece. Agent Santos approaches Mello directly, her heels clicking against the ballroom floor like a countdown to disaster. Captain Mello, we need you to come with us for questioning. There are some inconsistencies in your testimony that require clarification. The trap is sprung. The first move made in a game where Otis Mello doesn't even know he's playing. As federal agents escort Miami's most decorated detective toward the ballroom exit, Detective Ian Gomez begins mentally preparing for tomorrow's performance, when he'll comfort his captain's grieving fiancée, and slowly, carefully, begin planting the seeds of doubt that will grow into the destruction of everything Otis Mello has built. Dawn breaks over Biscayne Bay like a wound, painting the water crimson, while Miami's skyline stands silhouetted against the bleeding sky. The city never truly sleeps. But in these early hours it pretends to rest, its neon heartbeat slowing to match the rhythm of waves against seawalls and the distant hum of traffic on I-95. Captain Otis Mello sits in his Coconut Grove townhouse, still wearing last night's tuxedo minus the bow tie, which hangs undone around his neck like a black silk noose. The federal interrogation lasted until 4 a.m. 6 hours of the same questions asked 17 different ways. Photographs of bank records he'd never seen, recordings of phone conversations he'd never made. Agent Santos had been professional, almost apologetic. But her message was clear. Someone had manufactured evidence suggesting Mello took payoffs from the Montoya cartel, and that evidence was compelling enough to warrant a full investigation. His hands shake slightly as he pours Cuban coffee into a white ceramic cup. The caffeine and adrenaline from the night's ordeal creating a toxic cocktail in his bloodstream. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, he watches sailboats bob at their moorings, while joggers in pastel workout gear trace the waterfront path. Normal people living normal lives, untouched by the corruption eating Miami from the inside out. The phone rings. Desi's voice cuts through the morning quiet like salvation. The lawyers say it's all circumstantial, she tells him, her words rushed and breathless. Daddy's called in favors with the FBI director. Senator Morrison is making phone calls. This whole thing will disappear by Monday. But Mello knows better. In his 20 years of police work, he's learned that mud sticks regardless of truth, that accusations echo longer than exonerations, that a cop's reputation is like virginity once lost, impossible to recover. Someone wants him destroyed, and they're playing a long game with professional precision. I need to find out who's behind this, he says into the receiver, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. Someone with access to federal databases. Someone who knows my cases well enough to manufacture believable evidence. Otis, Desi's voice carries a warning he doesn't recognize. Daddy says you should keep your head down, let internal affairs handle the investigation. Don't go looking for fights that might not exist. The advice stings because it makes sense. But Mello didn't become Miami's youngest captain by following safe counsel. He built his career on instinct, on reading between lines and following threads others missed. And every instinct he possesses screams that this attack is personal, calculated, and far from over. After hanging up, He drives through empty streets to the precinct, his black Porsche 911 Turbo purring through neighborhoods where crack dealers are just finishing their night shifts and early commuters haven't yet begun their day. The police building looks different in dawn light, more fortress than sanctuary, its concrete walls seeming to close in rather than protect. Detective Ian Gomez is already at his desk, wearing a fresh white linen suit despite having worked until midnight on a drug bust in Overtown. His dark hair is perfectly styled, his mustache trimmed with geometric precision, his expression appropriately somber as he reviews case files. When Mello approaches, Gomez looks up with eyes that convey exactly the right mixture of concern and loyalty. "Captain," Gomez says, rising to his feet with military precision. "Hell of a thing last night. Everyone knows it's bullshit someone trying to bring down our best man." The support sounds genuine, feels right, but something in Gomez's tone makes Mello's detective instincts twitch. It's too perfect, too rehearsed, like dialogue from a script rather than spontaneous emotion. "Any word from the street about who might be stirring up federal interest in our operations?" Mello asks, settling into his office chair while watching Gomez through the glass partition that separates his workspace from the bullpen. Gomez shakes his head, his expression thoughtful. "Been thinking about that all night. Could be the Colombians trying to muddy the waters before the Montoya trial. Could be internal affairs fishing for bigger fish. Or," he pauses, as if reluctant to voice his suspicion. "Or what? Could be political. Someone who wants you out of the way for reasons that have nothing to do with police work." Gomez lets the implication hang in the air like smoke from a Cuban cigar. Before Mello can respond, Detective Casey Morrison bursts through the precinct doors, his sandy hair disheveled, his clothes rumpled from sleeping in them. The young detective looks like he's aged 5 years overnight, his blue eyes wide with the kind of panic that comes from watching your world collapse in real time. "Captain," Casey says, approaching Mello's office with quick, nervous steps. "I heard about last night. This is insane. Everyone knows you're clean. You're the most honest cop in Miami." The kid's loyalty is touching, almost heartbreaking in its sincerity. Casey Morrison represents everything Mello once believed about police work, the possibility of making a difference, of standing between chaos and civilization, of being worthy of the badge, and the trust it represents. Looking at Casey now, Mello sees his younger self, still innocent enough to believe that truth always wins and justice always prevails. "I appreciate the support," Mello tells him, but his attention is drawn to Detective Gomez, who's watching the interaction with an expression that might be jealousy. "Why don't you take the morning off? Get some sleep. This investigation is going to require all of us at our best." Casey nods eagerly, but as he turns to leave, Gomez intercepts him near the coffee machine. Their conversation is brief, conducted in whispers, but Mello catches fragments through the glass. Something about protecting the captain, and keeping our eyes open, and trusting the right people. The pieces of a puzzle begin forming in Mello's mind, still incomplete but suggesting a pattern he doesn't want to acknowledge. Someone is playing a game with stakes higher than his career. Someone who understands psychology as well as police procedure. Someone who knows exactly which buttons to push and which fears to exploit. His phone buzzes with a text message from Desi. "Lunch at Joe's Stone Crab? Need to see you." As he types his response, Mello doesn't notice Detective Gomez slipping out of the building through the back exit, or the satisfied smile playing across the man's lips as he walks toward his own car. The trap is expanding, its jaws opening wider with each passing hour, and the prey still doesn't realize he's being hunted. Joe's Stone Crab sits on the Miami River like a fortress of old-school elegance, its dark wood paneling and white tablecloths unchanged since the days when Meyer Lansky counted money in the back rooms. The lunch crowd consists of federal judges, shipping magnates, and cocaine cowboys wearing Armani suits over hearts black as crude oil. This is where Miami's elite come to make deals and break enemies, where handshakes carry more weight than contracts and silence costs more than diamonds. Desi Brabant arrives first, choosing a corner table where shadows provide privacy from the gossip columnists who prowl the dining room like vultures. She wears a cream-colored business suit with padded shoulders, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe ponytail that speaks to the pressure she's under. The past 18 hours have aged her fine lines around her green eyes, tension in her jaw, the kind of exhaustion that comes from fighting battles on multiple fronts. When Mello enters, conversations pause throughout the restaurant. Miami's power players watch him navigate between tables with the careful attention of predators assessing wounded prey. His charcoal suit is immaculate, his posture erect, but there's something different in his bearing, a wariness that wasn't there yesterday. The hyper-alertness of a man who's learned that enemies can wear friendly faces. Daddy's losing his mind, Desi tells him before he's fully seated, her voice low but intense. 3 federal agents showed up at headquarters this morning with more evidence. Bank records from Grand Cayman, phone logs from numbers traced to your townhouse, photographs of you meeting with known cartel associates. Mello's coffee cup stops halfway to his lips. What photographs? You apparently having dinner with Carlos Medina at Villa Vizcaya 2 months ago. Except I remember that night you were working late on the Brickell Avenue shooting. You never left the precinct. The manufactured evidence is sophisticated, professional, the kind of operation that requires resources and access to federal databases. Mello's mind races through possibilities. Rival cartels, internal affairs fishing expeditions, federal agencies playing political games. But something deeper bothers him. Something personal in the attack's precision. Someone's been watching me for months, he realizes aloud. Learning my routines, my cases, my relationships. This isn't random harassment. It's targeted destruction. Across the restaurant, Detective Ian Gomez enters through the side entrance reserved for VIPs, his presence immediately commanding attention from the maitre d'. He wears a pearl gray suit with a burgundy shirt open at the collar, gold chains glinting against his chest hair. His movements are fluid, confident, the walk of a man who belongs in rooms where power is traded like commodities. He approaches their table with the appropriate expression of concern mixed with professional urgency. "Captain, Miss Brabant," Gomez says, his voice carrying just the right note of deference. "I apologize for interrupting, but we've got a situation that requires your immediate attention." Mello's eyes narrow. What kind of situation? Casey Morrison. Kid's been asking questions about the federal investigation, trying to run his own parallel inquiry. This morning he accessed evidence files without authorization, made copies of witness statements, even tried to pull phone records from the night you were supposedly meeting with Medina. The information hits Mello like ice water. Casey's loyalty is admirable, but dangerous. A young detective playing amateur investigator could contaminate evidence, compromise the official inquiry, or worse, stumble into whatever trap is being constructed around his mentor. "Where is he now?" Mello asks. Gomez glances around the restaurant, ensuring their conversation remains private. "Last I heard, he was heading to Little Havana to interview some of Medina's known associates. Solo operation, no backup, no official authorization." Desi reaches across the table, her fingers brushing Mello's wrist. "You can't go after him. Any involvement in your own investigation will look like obstruction of justice." But Mello is already standing, his protective instincts overriding political calculation. Casey Morrison represents the future of honest police work in Miami, the kind of cop who might actually clean up the corruption eating the department alive. If something happens to the kid because of this investigation, Mello will carry that guilt forever. "I'll handle this quietly," he tells Desi, kissing her forehead with gentle reassurance. "One conversation, then I'll step back and let the process work." After Mello leaves, Gomez lingers at the table, his expression shifting to something approaching sympathy as he looks at Desi. She seems smaller now, more vulnerable, the strong facade cracking under pressure she never expected to face. "He's lucky to have someone like you in his corner," Gomez says softly. "Most women would run when the spotlight gets this hot." "I'm not most women," Desi replies, but there's uncertainty in her voice that wasn't there yesterday. "No, you're not," Gomez agrees, settling into the chair Mello vacated. "You're smart enough to know this investigation isn't going away. Someone wants your fiancé destroyed, and they're playing for keeps." He signals the waiter for coffee, his movements casual despite the gravity of his words. "The question is whether Captain Mello is being completely honest with you about his activities over the past year." Desi's green eyes flash with anger. "Are you suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything," Gomez interrupts smoothly. "I've worked with Otis for 3 years. I respect him, admire him, would follow him into any firefight, but I also know that good men sometimes make desperate choices when they're under pressure. The seed is planted with surgical precision." Gomez doesn't make accusations, he simply creates space for doubt to grow, for love to be poisoned by questions that multiply in darkness. "The captain's been under tremendous stress lately," he continues conversationally. "Pressure to make bigger cases, bring down higher value targets, Prove himself worthy of the position he was given. Sometimes that pressure can push a man toward sometimes compromises he never thought he'd make. Before Desi can respond, Gomez's beeper chirps with an incoming message. He glances at the display, his expression shifting to professional concern. "Speak of the devil," he says, standing and straightening his suit jacket. "Looks like Detective Morrison found more trouble than he was looking for in Little Havana. Emergency call just came in, shots fired, officer down." The color drains from Desi's face as she realizes what this means. If Casey Morrison is hurt or killed while conducting an unauthorized investigation into Mello's case, the scandal will metastasize from corruption charges to negligent supervision, from career-ending to life-destroying. Detective Ian Gomez walks away from the table with the satisfied expression of a chess master who's moved his queen into position for checkmate. Phase 2 is complete. Now the real destruction begins. The Calle Ocho district explodes in sirens and flashing lights, transforming the heart of Little Havana into a war zone of emergency vehicles and yellow crime scene tape. Miami fire rescue trucks block both ends of the street, while paramedics work frantically over a bloodied figure sprawled beside an overturned cafe table. The smell of gunpowder mingles with Cuban coffee and exhaust fumes, creating the distinctive perfume of urban violence. Detective Casey Morrison lies unconscious on the sidewalk, his sandy hair matted with blood, his white button-down shirt torn and stained crimson. 2 bullets caught him, one grazing his temple, another lodging in his shoulder. He's alive, but barely, his breathing shallow as EMTs prepare him for transport to Jackson Memorial's trauma unit. Captain Otis Mello arrives as they're loading Casey into the ambulance, his Porsche screeching to a halt behind the police barrier. He flashes his badge to the uniformed officers, controlling the perimeter, and approaches the scene with the controlled urgency of a man whose worst fears are materializing in real time. "What happened?" he demands of Sergeant Rodriguez, who's coordinating the initial investigation. "Kid was questioning witnesses about the Medina connection," Rodriguez explains, consulting his notepad. "Apparently got too close to something somebody wanted buried. 2 shooters on motorcycles, professional hit, gone before anyone could get a license plate. The attack bears all the hallmarks of cartel retaliation, swift, violent, designed to send a message that some questions shouldn't be asked. But the timing is too convenient, the targeting too precise. Someone wanted Casey Morrison silenced, and they used his unauthorized investigation as the perfect cover." Detective Ian Gomez materializes beside Mello like smoke from a cigarette, his pearl gray suit immaculate despite the chaos surrounding them. His expression combines appropriate concern with subtle calculation, the look of a man processing information and adjusting plans accordingly. "This is on me," Mello says, his voice heavy with guilt. "I should have stopped him from going solo." "Captain," Gomez says carefully, "with respect, the kid made his own choice. You can't blame yourself for another man's decisions." But Mello isn't listening. His eyes follow the ambulance as it screams through traffic toward the hospital. Emergency lights painting the afternoon sky red and blue. Casey Morrison was trying to clear his mentor's name, and now he's fighting for his life because of it. The weight of responsibility sits on Mello's shoulders like concrete blocks. "I need to know who ordered this hit," Mello tells Gomez. "Someone doesn't want Casey talking about what he discovered." Gomez nods thoughtfully, then lowers his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "I've been asking around, putting together pieces from the street. Word is someone high up in the department has been feeding information to the cartel's case files, investigation targets, witness identities. The accusation hangs in the humid air like poisonous gas." Mello's eyes narrow as he processes the implication. "You're talking about a mole," he says. "I'm talking about survival," Gomez replies. "Someone's been playing both sides, and now they're cleaning house before the federal investigation exposes them. Casey got too close, started asking the wrong questions of the right people." As if summoned by their conversation, Chief Thomas Brabant arrives in a black Lincoln town car, his bulk filling the passenger seat as a uniformed driver opens his door. The chief's granite features are darker than usual, storm clouds gathering in his gray eyes as he surveys the crime scene. When he approaches Mello, his expression is unreadable but ominous. "We need to talk," Brabant says without preamble. "Now." They walk away from the crowd of officers and EMTs, finding privacy beside a damaged storefront where bullet holes spiderweb through plate glass. Brabant's voice carries the kind of authority that ended careers and destroyed lives. The federal agents want to interview you again, he says bluntly. Tonight. They're suggesting this shooting is connected to your case retaliation for Morrison's investigation. Mello feels the trap closing around him with mechanical precision. Every move he makes generates more evidence, more suspicion, more reasons for the investigators to believe he's hiding something. Chief, I never asked Casey to investigate anything. He was acting on his own initiative. That's not how it's going to look, Brabant replies. Especially when they find out he accessed evidence files using your authorization codes. The words hit Mello like a physical blow. My codes? That's impossible. I never gave him access to anything. But even as he denies it, Mello realizes how easily authorization codes could be obtained, how computer logs could be manipulated, how a young detective's good intentions could be weaponized against his mentor. Someone has been planning this destruction with chessmaster precision, anticipating every move and countermove. There's something else, Brabant continues, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Internal Affairs found irregularities in your overtime reports from last year. Payments for surveillance operations that don't appear in any official case files. The fabricated evidence keeps multiplying, each new accusation more sophisticated than the last. Mello realizes he's fighting shadows, battling an enemy who understands the system well enough to use it as a weapon. Detective Gomez approaches them with studied casualness, carrying a manila envelope that looks official and ominous. Captain, he says, extending the envelope with appropriate reluctance. This came through federal channels an hour ago. Thought you should see it before anyone else. Inside are photographs, surveillance shots of Mello's townhouse, his car, his favorite restaurants. But these aren't random surveillance photos. They show him meeting with people he's never met, conducting transactions that never happened, living a double life that exists only in carefully manufactured fiction. The most damning photograph shows him shaking hands with Carlos Medina outside a Coconut Grove nightclub. Except Mello remembers that night. Clearly he was home with Desi, watching old movies and making love until dawn. Someone's been building a case against you for months, Gomez observes, his tone appropriately grave. Professional job, federal resources, access to surveillance equipment most people can't even imagine. As Mello stares at the impossible photographs, Detective Ian Gomez allows himself the smallest smile of satisfaction. The trap is nearly complete, the prey almost destroyed. Soon, very soon, justice will be served and debts will be paid in full. Jackson Memorial Hospital's trauma ward buzzes with the controlled chaos of life and death decisions, its fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across faces marked by exhaustion and desperation. The smell of disinfectant mingles with fear and hope, creating an atmosphere where time moves differently, seconds stretching into eternities while hours collapse into heartbeats. Detective Casey Morrison lies in ICU room 7, his head wrapped in white bandages that make him look younger than his 26 years. Machines monitor his vital signs with electronic precision, their steady beeping the only constant in a world suddenly gone unstable. The bullet that grazed his temple missed his brain by millimeters, leaving him unconscious but alive, teetering between recovery and permanent damage. Captain Otis Mello sits beside the hospital bed, his vigil entering its second night. He hasn't slept, hasn't eaten, hasn't left except to brief federal agents who seem more interested in his connection to the shooting than in catching the men responsible. His usually immaculate appearance shows the strained stubble darkening his jaw, his white shirt wrinkled, his eyes red-rimmed with guilt and exhaustion. He's strong, Desi says softly, entering the room with coffee and sandwiches from the hospital cafeteria. She's changed from her business suit into jeans and a Georgetown University sweatshirt, her blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail that makes her look like the college student she once was. The doctors say his brain activity is normal. He's going to wake up. Mello accepts the coffee but doesn't drink it, his attention focused on the unconscious man who represents everything pure about police work. Casey Morrison joined the force to make a difference, to stand between predators and their prey, to be worthy of the badge he wore with such pride. Now he lies broken because he believed in his mentor's innocence. This is my fault, Mello says for the 100th time. He was trying to clear my name, and now you're exactly where they want you, Desi interrupts, her voice carrying an edge of frustration. Consumed with guilt, making emotional decisions instead of logical ones, letting whoever's behind this manipulation control your reactions. Her analysis is accurate but painful. Mello recognizes the tactical error even as he's powerless to correct it. Someone is orchestrating his destruction with psychological precision, using his own virtues, loyalty, protectiveness, honor as weapons against him. Detective Ian Gomez appears in the doorway like a specter, his presence both welcome and unsettling. He wears a black silk shirt and charcoal slacks, his appearance suggesting he's been working late rather than sleeping. In his hand, he carries a leather portfolio that looks official and ominous. "Captain," he says, his voice appropriately subdued for the hospital setting. "I've got updates from the investigation." Gomez enters the room with careful steps, his dark eyes taking in every detail. Mello's exhausted condition, Desi's protective positioning, the intimacy that exists between them despite the crisis. His expression remains professionally neutral, but something deeper moves behind his eyes, something that might be satisfaction disguised as concern. "The shooters were professionals," he reports, opening his portfolio. "Colombian cartel? Definitely. But here's the interesting part, they were specifically targeting Morrison, not just hitting random cops. Someone gave them detailed information about his movements, his investigation, his planned interviews. The implication settles over the room like poisonous fog. Someone inside the department had provided intelligence to cartel assassins, turning Casey Morrison into a target with surgical precision. "Any leads on who might have leaked the information?" Mello asks. Gomez hesitates, his reluctance seemingly genuine. This is where things get complicated. The leak came from someone with high-level access to case files, someone who knew Morrison's investigation schedule before he did. He produces a computer printout from his portfolio, the kind of evidence that destroys careers and lives. These are access logs from the department's mainframe. Someone used administrative privileges to pull Morrison's activity reports, his interview schedules, even his personal file. Mello studies the document, his detective instincts working despite his emotional exhaustion. The computer logs show access times, user identification codes, specific files that were opened and downloaded. But what catches his attention is the pattern. Whoever accessed this information did so with intimate knowledge of how the system worked, when security would be minimal, which files would provide maximum intelligence value. "Whoever did this knows our operations inside and out," Mello concludes. "Gets worse," Gomez continues, producing another document. "The same administrative access was used to plant false evidence in your case file. The bank records, the phone logs, even the surveillance photographs, they were all inserted using legitimate department protocols." The revelation hits like a physical blow. Someone inside Metro-Dade Police has been systematically framing Mello while simultaneously providing intelligence to cartel killers. The scope of the betrayal is breathtaking in its ambition and terrifying in its implications. "We're dealing with someone high up the food chain," Gomez observes. "Someone with access, authority, and intimate knowledge of federal investigation procedures." Desi, who has been listening with growing alarm, suddenly goes pale. "Daddy," she whispers. "Whoever's doing this would have access to his files, his codes, his communications." The possibility hangs in the air like an accusation too terrible to voice directly. Chief Thomas Brabant controls every aspect of the investigation, has access to every piece of evidence, commands the loyalty of every officer in the department. If he wanted to destroy Mello, he could do so with absolute precision and complete impunity. "Your father wouldn't," Mello begins, but the words die in his throat as he considers the implications. Gomez closes his portfolio with decisive finality. "There's something else. Something personal I probably shouldn't mention." Both Mello and Desi turn toward him, sensing that whatever comes next will change everything. "The chief's been making phone calls," Gomez says reluctantly. "Private conversations with federal agents, discussions about limiting the scope of the investigation, suggestions about acceptable outcomes. The accusation is delivered with surgical precision. Not quite a direct charge, but enough to plant seeds of doubt that will grow in darkness." Gomez watches their faces carefully, calibrating his next move based on their reactions. Detective Ian Gomez has spent months planning this moment, this perfect convergence of manufactured evidence and emotional manipulation. Soon, very soon, the man who stole his destiny will lose everything that matters: his career, his reputation, and most importantly, the woman he loves. The neon glow of Miami's skyline bleeds through the hospital windows as midnight approaches, casting everything in shades of pink and electric blue. Detective Casey Morrison stirs in his hospital bed, consciousness returning in waves of pain and confusion. His eyes flutter open, unfocused and searching, trying to piece together fragments of memory from before the bullets found him. "Casey?" Mello leans forward, relief flooding his voice. "Easy, son, you're safe now." But Casey's first words emerge as a whisper that chills everyone in the room. "The photos. They're fake. All of them. Manufactured." Detective Ian Gomez moves closer to the bed, his expression shifting from concern to something more complex. "What photos, kid? You're not making sense." Casey's hand trembles as he reaches toward Mello, his blue eyes struggling to focus. Someone showed me pictures of you, Captain. Said you were working with the cartels. But the timestamps, they were wrong. I checked everything." The words tumble out in fragments, interrupted by winces of pain and the effort of forcing damaged neurons to fire correctly. But the meaning is clear enough. Casey Morrison had discovered evidence that the case against his mentor was fabricated, and someone tried to kill him for it. "Who showed you these pictures?" Mello asks urgently. But before Casey can answer, his eyes roll back and the monitors begin beeping frantically. Nurses rush in, pushing the visitors aside as they work to stabilize their patient. The moment of revelation vanishes behind medical emergency, leaving more questions than answers. Outside in the hospital corridor, Gomez places a sympathetic hand on Mello's shoulder. "Kid's been through trauma," he says quietly. "Brain injuries can cause hallucinations, false memories. Doctors see it all the time." But Desi isn't convinced. She's been watching Gomez carefully, noting the subtle ways his story keeps changing, how he always seems to have new evidence at exactly the right moment, how his concern feels rehearsed rather than genuine. "Ian," she says, her voice carrying new steel, "how did you know to come to the hospital tonight?" "We haven't called anyone." Gomez's smile doesn't waver, but something flickers behind his dark eyes. Police scanner. When one of our own gets hurt, word travels fast. It's a reasonable explanation, but Desi's instincts, honed by years as a prosecutor, sense something off in his delivery. She exchanges a glance with Mello, and for the first time since this nightmare began, they're thinking like a team again. "Detective Gomez," Mello says formally. "I need you to do something for me, quietly." "Anything, Captain." "I want you to pull the security footage from the department's parking garage for the past month. Focus on late-night access, especially around the times when someone was supposedly accessing case files using my authorization codes." Gomez nods enthusiastically, but Desi catches a micro-expression, a flash of calculation that suggests he's already planning how to handle this request. "Consider it done," Gomez says. "I'll have the footage on your desk by morning." As he walks away, his footsteps echoing in the hospital corridor, Desi grabs Mello's arm. "We can't trust him," she whispers urgently. Something about his story doesn't add up, but Mello is exhausted, emotionally drained, his judgment clouded by guilt over Casey's condition and fear about his own future. The systematic destruction of his life has left him paranoid and uncertain, unable to distinguish between genuine threats and imagined enemies. "Ian's been loyal since day one," he says wearily. "If I can't trust my own detectives, who can I trust?" The question hangs between them like an accusation, and Desi realizes that doubt is spreading like poison through every relationship in Mello's life. Whoever is orchestrating this destruction understands that isolation is the most effective weapon. Cut a man off from his allies, make him question everyone around him, and he becomes vulnerable to manipulation. 20 minutes later, in the hospital parking garage, Detective Ian Gomez makes a phone call from his car. "It's done," he says into his cell phone. "The kid woke up, but I handled it. Made it sound like brain trauma hallucinations." The voice on the other end is distorted, disguised, but the satisfaction is clear. "What about the security footage request? Already taken care of?" Gomez replies, lighting a cigarette with his gold zipper. "I'll edit the footage before I deliver it. Make sure it shows exactly what we need it to show." He takes a long drag, the ember glowing red in the darkness of his car. Captain Mello is starting to crack. The guilt over Morrison, the pressure from the investigation, the evidence piling up he's making mistakes, trusting the wrong people. And the girl? Getting suspicious, but she's isolated. Her father's position makes her afraid to voice doubts publicly. She'll keep her concerns private until it's too late. Gomez ends the call and sits in silence, watching the hospital lights flicker in his rearview mirror. 3 years of planning, of careful positioning, of building trust while laying traps. Soon, Otis Mello will lose everything: his career, his reputation, his freedom, and most satisfying of all, the woman who chose him over a man who deserved her more. The game is entering its final phase, and Detective Ian Gomez holds all the winning cards. Inside the hospital, unaware that their trusted colleague is orchestrating their destruction, Mello and Desi sit in exhausted silence beside Casey's bed. Neither speaks the fear growing between them that the walls are closing in, that their enemies are everywhere, that the man they've counted as an ally might be the most dangerous predator of all. Outside, Miami breathes its neon-scented air, indifferent to the tragedy unfolding in its heart. Another story of love destroyed by ambition, honor corrupted by jealousy, and trust poisoned by carefully planned betrayal. The city that never sleeps prepares to witness the final act of a very old tragedy, dressed in new clothes, but ending the same way. Such stories always end with good men destroyed by the evil that lives in shadows, wearing the faces of friends. 3 days pass like a fever dream of sleepless nights and mounting paranoia. Detective Casey Morrison remains unconscious, his condition stable but unchanged, while the federal investigation tightens around Captain Otis Mello like a python constricting its prey. Each new piece of evidence feels designed specifically to destroy him: bank records showing payments he never received, witness statements describing meetings he never attended, surveillance footage that captures a man who looks like him but isn't. Mello's townhouse in Coconut Grove becomes a fortress of suspicion. He checks for listening devices, sweeps for surveillance equipment, changes his phone number twice. The systematic nature of the attack suggests resources beyond what any single enemy could marshal: federal access, cartel connections, intimate knowledge of police procedures. Someone with reach across multiple agencies and organizations wants him destroyed. Detective Ian Gomez arrives Wednesday evening, carrying Chinese takeout and wearing the expression of a loyal friend bringing comfort to a man under siege. His black silk shirt and gold chains catch the lamplight as he spreads containers across Mello's dining table, creating an illusion of normalcy in a world gone insane. "Eat something," Gomez insists, opening containers of lo mein and General Tso's chicken. "You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." But Mello can't focus on food. His mind races through possibilities, connections, patterns that might explain who's orchestrating his destruction. The evidence is too sophisticated for random enemies, too personal for federal fishing expeditions, too comprehensive for cartel retaliation. "Ian," he says finally, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." Gomez pauses with chopsticks halfway to his mouth, his expression appropriately attentive. "Always, Captain. Do you think there's any possibility, any chance at all that someone close to me is involved in this setup?" The question hangs in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Gomez considers his answer with the careful deliberation of a man choosing exactly the right words for maximum impact. "I've been wondering the same thing," he admits reluctantly. "Whoever's doing this knows your schedule, your habits, your personal relationships. They knew exactly when Casey would be investigating alone, exactly which evidence to manufacture, exactly how to make everything look convincing." He sets down his chopsticks and leans forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Captain, there's something I found today. Something I didn't want to show you, but..." Gomez reaches into his jacket and withdraws a manila envelope, his reluctance seemingly genuine. Inside are photographs, surveillance shots taken with a telephoto lens, grainy but unmistakably clear. The first image shows Desi Brabant sitting in a restaurant booth across from a man Mello doesn't recognize. The second captures them walking together along Biscayne Boulevard, their body language suggesting intimacy. The third, most damaging of all, shows them entering a hotel, the same hotel where federal agents have been staying during their investigation. Mello stares at the photographs, his mind refusing to process what his eyes are seeing. The woman he loves, the woman he plans to marry, meeting secretly with someone connected to the investigation that's destroying his life. "Where did you get these?" His voice sounds hollow, distant, like it's coming from someone else's throat. "Anonymous tip," Gomez replies. "Someone slipped them under my car windshield with a note saying, 'I should know what my captain's fiancé is really doing while he's fighting for his career.' The timing is perfect, the evidence devastating. the psychological impact precisely calibrated. Gomez watches Mello's face carefully, noting the moment when doubt takes root, when love begins curdling into something darker. There's more, Gomez continues, producing additional documents. Phone records showing calls between her number and federal agents. Meeting logs from the U.S. Attorney's office with her name on the visitor list. Credit card receipts from restaurants where she had dinner with prosecution team members. Each piece of evidence feels like a knife twist, transforming memory into mockery. Every private conversation becomes suspect. Every moment of intimacy potentially calculated. Every declaration of love possibly scripted for an audience of investigators building their case. She's been feeding them information. Mello realizes, his voice barely above a whisper. Everything I told her, every private moment, every detail about my cases and my methods, she's been passing it all along. Gomez nods sadly, playing his role with Oscar-worthy precision. I'm sorry, Captain. I know how much she means to you. But the evidence is pretty clear. Miss Brabant has been cooperating with the federal investigation from the beginning. The revelation breaks something inside Mello that had been holding him together through the past week's nightmare. The woman he trusted with his heart, his future, his most vulnerable moments, has been systematically betraying him to his enemies. Every kiss was calculated, every caress choreographed, every I love you a performance designed to extract information. Her father knew, Mello continues, the pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. Chief Brabant knew exactly how to destroy me because his daughter was reporting every detail of our relationship. Outside, Miami's neon glow flickers against the windows like the dying light of hope. Inside, Detective Ian Gomez allows himself the smallest smile of satisfaction as he watches his enemy's world collapse with surgical precision. The trap is nearly complete. Soon, very soon, Otis Mello will take the final, irreversible step that will destroy not only his career but his soul, and Detective Ian Gomez will finally have his revenge for every slight, every promotion, every moment when he stood in the shadow of a man he considered his inferior. Justice, as Gomez understands it, is about to be served with the cold precision of a perfectly executed plan. The only question remaining is how much collateral damage there will be when everything finally comes crashing down. Thursday night descends over Miami like a velvet shroud, the city's neon heartbeat pulsing against storm clouds gathering over Biscayne Bay. Rain threatens but hasn't yet fallen, leaving the air thick with electricity and the promise of violence. In penthouse apartments and waterfront mansions, cocaine cowboys count money while sirens wail in the distance, another night of commerce and carnage beginning its ancient dance. Captain Otis Mello sits in his darkened townhouse, surrounded by the evidence of his betrayal. The photographs lie scattered across his coffee table like tarot cards predicting doom, images of Desi meeting with federal agents, dining with prosecutors, entering hotels where his enemies plan his destruction. Empty bourbon glasses mark the hours since Gomez left, each amber swallow burning away another piece of his faith in love, honor, and justice. His reflection in the picture window shows a man transformed by revelation. The crisp uniforms and perfect posture have given way to wrinkled clothes and hollow eyes. 3 days of stubble shadow his jaw, and his normally immaculate appearance suggests someone coming apart from the inside out. This is what betrayal looks like when it's total, when it's personal, when it's engineered by someone who understands exactly which wounds cut deepest. The sound of keys in the front door announces Desi's arrival. She enters wearing a cream-colored business suit and the expression of someone carrying terrible news, her blonde hair slightly damp from the threatening rain. In her hands, she carries a leather briefcase and what might be their last hope for salvation. "Otis?" she calls, her voice echoing in the dimly lit townhouse. "I've been trying to reach you all day. Your phone goes straight to voicemail." Mello doesn't turn from the window, his voice emerging flat and emotionless. "I've been thinking. About us. About this whole situation. About who I can trust." Desi sets down her briefcase and approaches carefully, sensing the change in atmosphere like a predator recognizing danger. "What's wrong? You sound different." "Do I?" Mello finally turns, and she sees something in his eyes that wasn't there before, a coldness, a distance, a judgment already rendered. "Maybe I'm finally seeing clearly for the first time." She notices the photographs spread across the coffee table, her face visible in every frame. Her complexion goes pale as she realizes what he's discovered, or thinks he's discovered. "Otis, let me explain." "Explain what?" His voice carries the kind of quiet menace that makes seasoned criminals confess. Explain how you've been feeding information to federal agents? Explain how every private moment we shared was being recorded and analyzed by prosecutors? Explain how the woman I planned to marry has been systematically destroying my life? Desi reaches for one of the photographs, studying it with the trained eye of a prosecutor examining evidence. These are taken out of context. Yes, I met with Agent Santos, but not for the reasons you think. Then enlighten me, Mello says, pouring himself another bourbon with steady hands. Tell me why the daughter of Police Chief Thomas Brabant has been holding secret meetings with federal investigators while her fiancé's career burns to the ground. The accusation hangs between them like poisonous smoke. Desi realizes she's walking through a minefield of manufactured evidence and genuine emotion, where one wrong step could destroy everything they've built together. I was trying to help you, she says desperately. Agent Santos approached me 3 weeks ago. Said they had evidence against you that looked compelling. She wanted to know if I'd noticed any changes in your behavior, any signs that you might be involved with the cartels. Mello's laugh is bitter as broken glass. So you decided to investigate me yourself. Very thorough. I told them you were innocent. Desi's voice rises with frustration. Every meeting, every conversation, every question they asked, I defended you. I told them they were wrong. That someone was framing you. That the evidence had to be manufactured. But Mello is beyond listening to reason. The systematic destruction of his life has left him paranoid and isolated, unable to distinguish between genuine loyalty and sophisticated deception. The bourbon and exhaustion have clouded his judgment, while Gomez's carefully planted evidence has poisoned his ability to trust. The phone records don't lie, he says, gesturing toward the documents spread across his table. Neither do the credit card receipts or the hotel surveillance footage. You've been working with them from the beginning. Desi moves closer, her green eyes bright with tears and determination. Look at me, Otis. Really look at me. Do you honestly believe I could betray you? Do you think I'm capable of that kind of deception? For a moment, something flickers in his expression, the love that brought them together, the trust that sustained them through 6 months of happiness. But then he remembers the photographs, the evidence, the systematic way his life has been dismantled. I don't know what to believe anymore, he admits, and the pain in his voice is more devastating than anger. Outside, Detective Ian Gomez sits in his car across the street, watching the townhouse windows with the patience of a hunter waiting for the perfect shot. Through high-powered binoculars, he observes the confrontation unfolding exactly as he planned. Two people who love each other tearing themselves apart with manufactured suspicion and carefully planted lies. His cell phone buzzes with a text message. Everything in position. Ready for final phase. Gomez types his reply. Execute on my signal. Make it look random. The endgame has begun. Soon, very soon, the last pieces of Otis Mello's world will crumble, and Detective Ian Gomez will finally have his revenge for every slight, every promotion, every moment when he stood in the shadow of a better man. Justice, as he understands it, is about to be served with blood and bullets, and the kind of violence that makes headlines in a city already drowning in tragedy. The confrontation escalates with the inevitability of a hurricane making landfall. Two people who once shared everything now circling each other like wounded predators. Lightning flickers outside the townhouse windows, illuminating their faces in stark black and white, love transformed into accusation, trust corrupted into suspicion. Desi opens her briefcase with desperate urgency, pulling out legal documents and case files she's been assembling in secret. I have proof, she says, spreading papers across the coffee table next to the photographs. Evidence that someone's been systematically framing you, manufacturing evidence, building a case designed to destroy your career. Mello glances at the documents but doesn't touch them, his paranoia interpreting even her attempts to help as further manipulation. How convenient that you suddenly have evidence clearing my name. What's your endgame here, Desi? String me along until the feds have everything they need? My endgame? Her voice cracks with emotion. My endgame is marrying the man I love and building a life together. Everything I've done, every meeting, every conversation, every piece of information I've gathered has been to protect you. She points to bank records, computer printouts, telephone logs. Look at the timestamps on the evidence against you. Look at the digital signatures on the files. Someone with high-level access has been manipulating records, creating false documentation, building a case that looks convincing, but falls apart under scrutiny. For a moment, Mello wavers. The lawyer in Desi has assembled a compelling argument, the kind of systematic analysis that could exonerate him if anyone bothered to investigate properly. But Gomez's psychological manipulation runs deeper than evidence, appealing to fears and insecurities that logic can't touch. "You're a prosecutor," Mello says coldly. "Building convincing narratives is what you do for a living. How do I know this isn't just another performance?" The accusation hits her like a physical blow. 6 months of shared intimacy, of whispered secrets and vulnerable moments, reduced to professional calculation. The man who once traced her spine with reverent fingers now looks at her like she's a hostile witness. "Because I love you," she says simply. "Because everything I am, everything I want to be, is tied to you. Because destroying you would be destroying myself." But love, Mello has learned, can be faked as easily as evidence. In a world where trust is currency and betrayal is commonplace, even the most sincere emotion becomes suspect. His phone rings, cutting through the tension like a blade. Gomez's voice comes through the speaker, urgent and concerned. "Captain, you need to get to Jackson Memorial immediately. Casey Morrison just woke up. He's asking for you specifically, says he has information about who's been setting you up." The news should bring hope, but Mello's paranoia has reached critical mass. He looks at Desi with fresh suspicion, wondering if this is part of some coordinated script designed to manipulate his movements. "I have to go," he tells her, reaching for his jacket and service weapon. "I'm coming with you," Desi says immediately. "No." His voice carries absolute finality. "I don't want you anywhere near this investigation. I don't want you anywhere near me." The rejection cuts deeper than any physical wound. Desi watches the man she loves walk away, his shoulders rigid with mistrust, his heart closed to everything they once shared. The manufactured evidence has done its work perfectly, turning love into suspicion and partnership into isolation. After Mello leaves, Desi collapses onto the couch, surrounded by the documents that prove his innocence and the photographs that suggest her guilt. Her legal mind recognizes the sophisticated nature of the frame-up, the way evidence has been manipulated to create a narrative that destroys both the accused and anyone who tries to defend him. Someone wants Otis Mello destroyed completely, not just professionally but personally. Someone who understands his psychology well enough to use his own virtues against him, his loyalty transformed into paranoia, his protectiveness perverted into possessiveness. Her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "Leave Miami tonight. Take nothing. Tell no one. This is your only warning." 20 minutes later, Detective Ian Gomez lets himself into the townhouse using keys he duplicated months ago. He finds Desi exactly where he expected, sitting in the dark, clutching the threatening text message, tears streaking down her face. "Miss Brabant," he says, his voice carrying false concern. "I saw Captain Mello leave. Everything all right?" She looks up, her green eyes red with crying but still sharp with intelligence. "Ian, someone's trying to destroy both of us. These photographs, this evidence, it's all manufactured." Gomez moves closer, his expression sympathetic as he settles beside her on the couch. "I know," he says softly. "I've been investigating independently, trying to figure out who's behind the frame-up. Do you have any leads?" His hand moves to her shoulder, ostensibly comforting but actually controlling. "I have some theories. But right now, you're in serious danger. Whoever's orchestrating this has already tried to kill Casey Morrison. You could be next." The threat is real because Gomez himself represents it. His plan has reached its final phase, requiring the elimination of everyone who might expose his deception. Desi Brabant knows too much, cares too much, possesses the legal skills to unravel his carefully constructed lies. "You need to disappear," he continues, his voice urgent with manufactured concern. "Tonight. Let me handle Captain Mello, help him understand what's really happening." But Desi's prosecutor instincts recognize something wrong in his delivery. Some subtle falseness that triggers alarm bells in her subconscious. She's spent years reading criminals, identifying deception, recognizing when someone's story doesn't align with their behavior. "Ian," she says carefully, "how did you know I was here alone? How did you know Otis had left?" Detective Ian Gomez smiles, and for the first time, she sees the predator behind the mask of loyalty. The charming colleague, the trusted friend, the man who's been orchestrating their destruction with surgical precision. "Because I've been watching you both very carefully," he says, his hand tightening on her shoulder. For a very long time. The mask falls away like shed skin, revealing the predator that has been hiding behind 3 years of manufactured loyalty. Detective Ian Gomez's smile transforms from concerned colleague to something reptilian, his dark eyes reflecting the neon glow from the windows like a hunter's in the darkness. The hand on Desi's shoulder shifts from comfort to restraint, his fingers digging into her flesh with the controlled strength of someone accustomed to violence. "You want to know why?" he asks conversationally, as if discussing the weather rather than orchestrating the systematic destruction of 2 lives. "You want to understand what drives a man to spend months planning the perfect revenge?" Desi tries to pull away, but his grip tightens with casual ease. Her prosecutor's mind races through options: scream, fight, run, but Gomez anticipates every thought with the expertise of someone who studied his prey thoroughly. "It started with the captain's position," he continues, his voice carrying the bitter edge of years of accumulated resentment. "3 years ago, when your father had to choose between promoting me or bringing in the golden boy from Liberty City. 15 years I gave this department. 15 years of blood and bullets and watching scumbags walk free on technicalities. But when the cameras were rolling and the federal grants needed a photogenic face, who did Chief Brabant choose?" His free hand traces the outline of her jaw with mock tenderness. "The war hero, the outsider. The man whose skin color made for better press conferences and community relations." Desi realizes with crystalline clarity that she's sitting next to a man who spent months orchestrating their destruction with the patience of a chess master. Every piece of evidence, every suspicious circumstance, every moment of doubt has been carefully planned and executed. "You manufactured everything," she whispers. "The bank records, the photographs, the witness statements, all of it." "Not all of it," Gomez corrects with professional pride. "Some of it I simply enhanced. Your meetings with Agent Santos were real, but I made sure they looked suspicious in the right light. Casey Morrison's investigation was genuine, but I guided him toward dangerous people at exactly the wrong time." He produces his service weapon from beneath his jacket, the metal gleaming dully in the ambient light. "The beauty of a good frame-up is using people's own actions against them. Your fiancé's protective instincts, your legal thoroughness, Morrison's loyalty. I turned all of their virtues into weapons." Outside, thunder rolls across Biscayne Bay as the promised storm finally arrives. Rain begins hammering against the windows with increasing intensity, the sound masking any noise from within the townhouse. Miami's neon glow blurs through the water streaming down glass, creating an impressionistic backdrop for a very real nightmare. "What do you want?" Desi asks, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. "Justice," Gomez replies simply. "Your father destroyed my career prospects, your fiancé stole my destiny, and you." His grip tightens painfully. "You chose him over someone who would have worshipped you properly." The confession reveals the true scope of his obsession. This isn't just about professional jealousy or wounded pride, it's about a man who believes the world owes him what he considers his rightful place, who sees other people's success as theft from his own potential. "Otis will never believe you're capable of this," Desi says desperately. "He trusts you completely." "That's what makes it perfect," Gomez replies. "When they find your body, when the evidence suggests you were killed by cartel assassins trying to silence a prosecution witness, he'll be consumed with guilt. The great Captain Mello, unable to protect the woman he loved, destroyed by his own failures. His plan is diabolical in its psychological sophistication. Mello will spend the rest of his life believing that his enemies killed Desi to hurt him, that his investigation brought violence into her world, that his love was literally lethal. And if he survives the grief," Gomez continues, "if he doesn't eat his gun within the first year, he'll spend the rest of his career as a broken man. Drinking too much, making mistakes, slowly destroying everything he once stood for." The storm outside intensifies, lightning illuminating the townhouse in stark snapshots of violence about to unfold. But Desi Brabant didn't become an assistant district attorney by surrendering to intimidation. And she didn't fall in love with a cop without learning something about survival. Her hand moves slowly toward her briefcase, where she keeps a small canister of pepper spray, a precaution in a city where prosecutors make powerful enemies. Gomez notices the movement but doesn't consider it threatening, his ego interpreting her slight shift as trembling rather than preparation. "One more question," she says, buying time while positioning herself for what might be her only chance. How are you going to explain being here when my body is discovered? I won't be here, Gomez replies. I'll be at Jackson Memorial, comforting your grieving fiancé, helping him understand that his enemies have taken the ultimate revenge, the loyal friend, standing by his captain during the darkest hour. The irony is perfect, the cruelty surgical in its precision. Ian Gomez will comfort the man he's destroying, positioning himself as the only person Otis Mello can trust in a world gone mad with violence and betrayal. But as he raises his weapon, savoring the moment of absolute power over his victim's fate, Detective Ian Gomez makes the same mistake that destroys every predator who believes his own mythology. He underestimates his prey's will to survive. The pepper spray erupts from Desi's hand like liquid fire, catching Detective Ian Gomez directly in the face as he savors his moment of triumph. His scream of pain and rage fills the townhouse as he stumbles backward, his weapon discharging wildly into the ceiling, plaster raining down like snow in the strobing lightning from outside. Desi doesn't wait to see the damage. Her prosecutor's training in courtroom strategy translates perfectly to survival: create chaos, exploit weakness, never give your opponent time to recover. She rolls off the couch and sprints toward the back door, her heels clicking against hardwood floors as Gomez's curses echo behind her. You bitch! He roars, his voice distorted by pain and chemical burns. You think this changes anything? You think running saves you? But Desi is already through the sliding glass door and into the storm-lashed night, Miami's summer rain hitting her like ice water, soaking through her business suit in seconds. The townhouse complex's courtyard offers limited cover, palm trees bending in the wind, decorative fountains overflowing with runoff, security lights casting long shadows that could hide predators or prey. Behind her, she hears Gomez stumbling through the townhouse, his vision impaired but his rage providing focus. He knows the complex layout better than she does. 3 years of visiting his captain has given him detailed knowledge of every exit, every hiding place, every tactical advantage. Her cell phone, miraculously still clutched in her hand despite the chaos, shows no signal. The storm has knocked out several cell towers, leaving her isolated from help, from backup, from anyone who might believe her story about the trusted detective who's been orchestrating their destruction. She reaches the complex's swimming pool, its surface churning with raindrops and wind, underwater lights casting eerie blue shadows against the surrounding buildings. The pool house offers temporary shelter, but also the possibility of being trapped if Gomez figures out her location. Inside the townhouse, Gomez has recovered enough to think tactically. His eyes burn like acid, tears streaming down his face, but his mind works with the cold precision that made him an effective detective. He wipes his face with a kitchen towel and checks his weapon, 5 rounds remaining. More than enough for what he needs to accomplish. Desi, he calls out, his voice carrying across the courtyard with false concern. I know you're out there. Listen to me, running only makes this worse. Let's talk this through like civilized people. His tone suggests reasonableness, the kind of calm negotiation cops use with suicidal jumpers and barricaded suspects. But Desi recognizes the predator's patience, the way hunters speak to prey while positioning themselves for the killing blow. Lightning illuminates the courtyard in stark detail, revealing her position near the pool house. Gomez sees her silhouette and moves with practiced stealth, his Italian loafers silent on wet concrete despite the chaos of the storm. He's done this before: stalked suspects through urban terrain, cornered criminals in confined spaces, delivered violence with professional efficiency. You know what the beautiful irony is? He calls out, closing the distance between them with patient precision. Captain Mello is at the hospital right now, sitting beside Morrison's bed, believing that kid has answers that will save him. But Morrison's never waking up. The head trauma was more severe than the doctors realized. The revelation hits Desi like physical pain. Casey Morrison, the young detective whose only crime was loyalty to his mentor, dying because he stumbled too close to the truth. Another casualty in Gomez's campaign of systematic destruction. He tried to tell your fiancé the truth. Gomez continues, his voice growing closer. Right before I had him shot, he'd figured out that the evidence was manufactured. Smart kid, good detective, terrible timing. Desi realizes with crystalline horror that Casey Morrison's shooting wasn't cartel retaliation, it was assassination. Orchestrated by the same man who's been playing puppet master with their lives for months. The scope of Gomez's planning, his willingness to kill innocent people to achieve his revenge, transforms him from corrupt cop to something far more dangerous. She moves around the pool house, trying to keep the building between herself and her hunter, but Gomez anticipates her movements, with the expertise of someone who's studied predator-prey dynamics professionally. He appears at the corner she's heading toward, his weapon raised, his burned eyes streaming but focused. "End of the line," he says conversationally. "Nothing personal, just business. You chose the wrong man, defended the wrong cause, picked the losing side in a war you never knew was being fought." But as Gomez raises his weapon for the killing shot, two things happen simultaneously that transform the equation completely. First, Detective Casey Morrison's voice crackles through the police radio clipped to Gomez's belt. "All units. Detective Ian Gomez is the suspect in the evidence tampering case. He's armed and extremely dangerous. Consider him a threat to all personnel." Second, Captain Otis Mello's Porsche 911 Turbo comes screaming through the complex's security gate, its headlights cutting through the storm like searchlights, its engine roaring with the sound of justice finally arriving at the scene of its own near destruction. The game has changed. The hunter has become the hunted. And Detective Ian Gomez realizes that his perfect plan has one fatal flaw: he underestimated the power of love to overcome manufactured doubt and the determination of good people to fight back against evil wearing familiar faces. Captain Otis Mello emerges from his Porsche like an avenging angel, his service weapon drawn, rain, plastering his shirt against his chest as lightning turns the courtyard into a battlefield of shadows and strobing white light. The radio transmission from Casey Morrison, miraculously conscious and coherent enough to expose the truth, has shattered the last of his manufactured paranoia, replacing doubt with crystal clear purpose. "Ian," Mello's voice cuts through the storm with commanding authority. "Put the weapon down. It's over." Detective Ian Gomez spins toward his former captain, keeping his gun trained on Desi while calculating odds and escape routes with the desperate precision of a cornered predator. His chemical-burned eyes stream tears that mix with rain, creating rivulets of pain down his face, but his grip remains steady on the weapon that represents his last chance at completing 3 years of meticulous planning. "Captain," Gomez calls back, his voice carrying wounded betrayal despite the circumstances. "You're just in time to watch your fiancée die for her father's sins." The standoff crystallizes around the swimming pool, 3 points of a triangle connected by history, betrayal, and the possibility of redemption. Water churns around them, wind howls through palm fronds, and somewhere in the distance, sirens wail as backup units respond to Morrison's radio alert. "You manufactured everything," Mello says, advancing slowly with his weapon raised. "The evidence, the witnesses, the photographs, all of it designed to destroy my life piece by piece." "Your life," Gomez laughs, the sound harsh as breaking glass. "Your life was built on stealing what belonged to me. That captain's position, that federal recognition, that woman, all of it should have been mine." The confession pours out like poison from a lanced wound. 3 years of resentment, of watching someone else receive what he considered his birthright, of believing that merit was less important than politics, and that deserving something was the same as earning it. 15 years I gave this department," Gomez continues, his voice rising above the storm. 15 years of perfect service, and when promotion time came, they chose you because your skin color made better television. They chose me because I was better at the job," Mello replies flatly, still advancing with methodical precision. "Because I could build cases without planting evidence, solve crimes without creating victims, command respect without demanding it." The psychological profile that emerges is classic: a narcissist who interprets other people's success as personal theft, who believes the world owes him recognition regardless of actual merit, who sees equality as oppression when it costs him advantages he never deserved. Casey Morrison figured it out, didn't he? Mello continues. "That's why you had him shot. A good kid, trying to help his mentor, getting too close to your carefully constructed lies." Gomez's grip tightens on his weapon, desperation beginning to override calculation. Morrison was collateral damage, just like she is. He gestures toward Desi with the gun barrel. "Sometimes innocent people get hurt when justice demands satisfaction." "Justice?" Mello's voice carries the kind of quiet menace that makes hardened criminals confess. "You call framing an innocent man and murdering a young detective justice?" "I call it balancing the scales," Gomez replies. "Making sure that people who steal other people's destinies pay the appropriate price." Lightning illuminates the scene with stark clarity. Two cops who once worked side by side, now separated by an ocean of betrayal and manufactured hatred. The rain intensifies, turning the courtyard into a natural amphitheater for a confrontation that's been building since the night Otis Mello was promoted over Ian Gomez. "Let her go," Mello says, his tone shifting to the kind of negotiation he's used with hostage takers and desperate criminals. "Your fight is with me, not with her. My fight is with everyone who participated in stealing my life." Gomez corrects. "Her father made the decision. You accepted the promotion. She chose you over someone who would have treated her like a queen." The delusion is complete. A man who's convinced himself that other people's choices were theft from his predetermined fate, that love can be assigned like duty rosters, that violence can correct the cosmic unfairness of not being appreciated as much as he believes he deserves. But as Gomez prepares to make his final move, to complete the destruction that began with manufactured evidence and must end with real bullets, he makes the same mistake that destroys every predator who believes his own mythology about superiority and inevitability. He underestimates the power of two people who love each other, to coordinate their actions without words, to fight as a team even when they've been systematically turned against each other by an expert manipulator. Desi meets Mello's eyes across 30 feet of rain-soaked courtyard, and in that glance, 6 months of intimacy and trust reassert themselves. She sees his plan in the slight shift of his stance, understands her role in the barely perceptible movement of his free hand, recognizes that their survival depends on perfect timing and absolute faith in each other. Detective Ian Gomez has spent 3 years planning the perfect revenge against people he considered his inferiors. Now he's about to discover why superior predators hunt in pairs, and why love is more powerful than hate when it comes to matters of life and death. The storm provides cover, the darkness creates confusion, and justice finally arrives at the scene of its own near murder, carried in the hands of two people who refuse to be destroyed by someone else's poisonous interpretation of fairness and desert. The moment crystallizes like lightning frozen in amber, 3 figures locked in deadly triangle, rain hammering down like bullets, the swimming pool's underwater lights casting everything in hellish blue illumination. Detective Ian Gomez stands with his weapon trained on Desi. Captain Otis Mello advances with methodical precision, and between them lies 3 years of manufactured hatred, about to reach its violent conclusion. "Time's up," Gomez announces, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Say goodbye to your con." Desi dives left into the churning pool water as Mello lunges right, their coordinated movement executed with the precision of partners who understand each other without words. Gomez's shot goes wide, the bullet sparking off concrete as his targets disappear into chaos and confusion. The underwater lights transform Desi into a mermaid shadow as she swims toward the pool's far edge, while Mello uses a decorative fountain for cover, rain, and gunfire, creating a symphony of violence in the storm-lashed courtyard. Gomez spins between targets, his burned eyes streaming, his perfect plan dissolving into the kind of messy reality that separates theoretical revenge from actual survival. "You can't run forever," Gomez screams, firing at shadows and water, his remaining rounds depleting with each wild shot. "I'll hunt you both to the ends of the earth." But the predator's advantage has evaporated. The methodical planner who orchestrated months of psychological warfare has become a desperate animal, reacting instead of calculating, emotion overriding the tactical thinking that made his frame-up so effective. Mello emerges from behind the fountain, water streaming from his soaked clothes, his weapon steady despite the chaos. "It's over, Ian. Drop your weapon and surrender." "Surrender?" Gomez's laugh borders on hysteria. "Surrender to what? A system that rewards the wrong people? A department that promotes politics over merit? A world that gives everything to those who don't deserve it?" The delusion is complete, a man so consumed by entitlement and resentment that he can't recognize reality anymore, can't understand that other people's success isn't theft from his own destiny, can't accept that sometimes the better person actually wins. Detective Casey Morrison's voice crackles through police radios as backup units surround the complex. Suspect has been disarmed. Repeat, Detective Gomez is no longer armed. Move in for apprehension. But Morrison's information is wrong. Gomez still has 1 round remaining, saved for this moment, for the shot that will complete his revenge even if it costs him everything. He raises his weapon toward Mello, his burned eyes focusing with desperate intensity, his finger beginning the final squeeze that will end 3 years of planning with a single bullet. The shot echoes across the courtyard like thunder, but it comes from Desi's position at the pool's edge, where she's retrieved Gomez's backup weapon dropped during his chemical-blinded stumble, now smoking in her steady hands. Her prosecutor's training included firearms instruction, hours at the range preparing for the kind of threats that come with putting dangerous people behind bars. Detective Ian Gomez staggers backward, looking down at the spreading crimson stain across his silk shirt with genuine surprise. The master manipulator who controlled every variable, who planned every contingency, who believed his superior intelligence guaranteed victory, brought down by the simple miscalculation of underestimating his victim's will to survive. "Impossible," he whispers, sinking to his knees beside the pool. "I planned everything perfectly. Every detail, every variable, every possible outcome. You planned everything except the possibility that we might actually love each other," Desi tells him, water streaming from her blonde hair as she emerges from the pool. "That trust might be stronger than your manufactured doubt." Sirens fill the night as Metro-Dade backup units flood the complex, their red and blue lights mixing with lightning to create a kaleidoscope of justice finally arrived. EMTs rush toward Gomez, while uniformed officers secure the scene. And somewhere in Jackson Memorial Hospital, Detective Casey Morrison continues his recovery, his testimony already destroying the fabricated case against his mentor. Captain Otis Mello holsters his weapon and moves toward Desi, 6 months of love reasserting itself now that the poison of manufactured suspicion has been neutralized. They embrace in the rain, two people who survived systematic destruction because they chose to trust love over fear, partnership over isolation. "The evidence against me," Mello says, his voice barely audible over the storm, "will all be exposed as fabrication." Desi completes. "Ian made one crucial error. He was so focused on destroying you that he forgot to cover his own tracks completely. Every piece of false evidence has digital fingerprints, authentication codes, timestamps that prove manipulation." Detective Ian Gomez dies as the EMTs work over him, his life ending not in the blaze of glory he imagined, but in the messy reality of consequences for actions. Justice delivered by the very people he tried to destroy. His final words, whispered to a God who might or might not be listening, are an apology that comes 3 years too late to matter. The storm breaks as dawn approaches, Miami's neon skyline emerging from gray clouds like a promise of redemption. In hospital rooms and police stations, the truth spreads with the efficiency that only truth possesses. Detective Ian Gomez's systematic frame-up exposed, Captain Otis Mello's reputation restored, Detective Casey Morrison recovering to fight another day for justice in a city that desperately needs good cops. 6 months later, Captain and Mrs. Otis Mello stand on the balcony of their new home in Key Biscayne, watching sailboats navigate the blue-green waters of Biscayne Bay. The wedding was small, private, attended by fellow officers who understand that some battles are won not through superior firepower but through superior character. Miami continues its eternal dance of vice and virtue, predator and prey, corruption and justice. But in at least one corner of the city, love triumphed over hate, truth conquered lies, and two people who almost lost everything to another man's poison discovered that some things honor, loyalty, trust are worth fighting for, even when the odds seem impossible. The city that never sleeps dreams occasionally of justice, and sometimes, just sometimes, those dreams come true.